Again, just wanted to introduce myself one more time. My name's Dave, and I'm here at Homeschool Tracker. And along with my wife, Amy, we uh, run Homeschool Tracker, and we're here to support the homeschool community. So I just want to take a second just to say thank you again to all of you for coming out this afternoon and for being customers. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. And it's really our goal, our mission to not only create tools and resources to make you more successful in your homeschool, but also to give you the training and support so that you know how to use those tools, give you the best practices, so that you can be more efficient in using those tools. So ultimately, you can be more successful in your homeschool. Just a little housekeeping right here at the beginning. I am recording this, so I'll send a recording to each and every one of you that have registered for the webinar. You'll get an email with a link to that after it's available. Additionally, we will be answering questions. So as I mentioned before, you can click on that Q&A button in your viewer and submit a question at any time. I'll likely answer all the questions at the end. And if we don't have a chance to get to the question, or for whatever reason, maybe it's too specific for the whole audience, I'll definitely follow up in an email to you with an answer to your question. So we're set to go for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. It really just depends on how many questions we get. So I have about 45 minutes to an hour's worth of demo where I'm going to walk through a lot of the basic tools in Homeschool Tracker. We're going to learn a lot about how to use it effectively, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So let's take a second here and just kind of walk through the agenda. So the first thing we'll go over is where to find help. As you may know, Homeschool Tracker is very feature rich. There's a lot of tools and options available. And so, we don't want you to get stuck. So I want to show you a few places where you can find help along the way. We'll do a quick interface tour where I'll just kind of show you where things are within the program. We'll talk a lot about the difference between subjects and courses, because that's a really important distinction and something that you need to do pretty much at the beginning when you're getting set up. Then we'll talk about assignments, which are really the core of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. Then we'll dive into lesson plans, which are a really popular feature within Homeschool Tracker. We'll talk about reports. Specifically the daily task list, which is something that you can use with your students to let them know all the work that they need to do on a particular day or over the course of a week. And we'll talk about workflows. We'll actually talk about workflows as we go. And what I mean by workflows is kind of going back to what I was saying before. We don't want to just create the tools, but we want to help you use the tools effectively. So Homeschool Tracker is it's a program that can be used in a lot of different ways. And so depending on your needs and the way that you set up your homeschool, you may use it differently than somebody else. And so I'll walk through a few different ways to use Homeschool Tracker, and you can certainly decide, which way is best for you. And, if you have specific needs or if your situation doesn't quite fit into one of those workflows, shoot us an email or, submit a question and we can talk through that as well. And then, like I mentioned, we'll also have time for Q&A at the end of our demo. Okay, so where to find help? As I mentioned, Homeschool Tracker is very feature rich, so there's a lot of different options. And due to that, there may be times when you get stuck. So the first thing I'll mention are the Getting Started tutorial videos. And if you've signed up recently for Homeschool Tracker, you likely got an email that had a link to those. But I'm just going to show you real quick where to find that. At any time, you can always go to help.homeschooltracker.com. And this is our main help resource. And right here at the top, you'll see our Getting Started video guide. It's 11 parts, and altogether, it probably only takes about 30 minutes or so to watch the whole thing. So I highly recommend giving that a watch. The fact that you're already here on this webinar is great. So you'll probably cover a lot of that here, but this is a great way to just kind of dive right into a specific area if you just need a quick refresher. The other thing is on this webinar, we probably won't cover part one here, which is activating your account and setting up your school. I'm going to assume that you've already done that. If you haven't and you need help with that, certainly watch part one right here, and it'll walk you through that whole process. The other thing is the help documentation. So back on this help site, which again is help.homeschooltracker.com, you can see that this is just a huge resource of help pages. And the way it's organized is really by topic or keyword. So what I like to suggest to users is that at any time, if you're within Homeschool Tracker, so for example, I'm just here, let's go to the calendar view. If you click on this help link up here in the top right corner, it'll take you straight to the corresponding help page for the page that you are on. So here's the agenda calendar view help page. And it includes anything and everything you ever wanted to know about the page, and includes links off to specific pages for other items within that page. So that's a quick way to navigate the help documentation if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. Another great way is to just use the search box here. So if you're searching for days off, you can just search and quickly find the page that you might be looking for. And then the last thing I'll mention is you could just search this index here and quickly find what you're looking for as well. So if you're looking for the program options, you could click there and go straight to program options. Okay, so that's the help resource. And then the last thing for help is email. So definitely email us anytime, support@homeschooltracker.com. My wife, Amy, she monitors the email box all the time. And we respond to each and every email we receive, typically within 1 to 2 business days. And if you've ever emailed us, you've probably received an email back from us even quicker than that. But we like to just kind of say 1 to 2 business days just to make sure that we're meeting the expectation. But like I said, don't hesitate to email us. It could be a very specific thing like, how do I find X, Y, or Z? Or maybe it's a bigger sort of workflow question. I have a co-op that meets, twice a month, and I have this class here and this course here. How should I organize things? We can help with that as well. So don't hesitate to email us, support@homeschooltracker.com. The other thing I'll mention, we do absolutely respond to each and every email. So if for some reason you don't receive a response from us within 1 to 2 business days, there's always a chance we didn't get it, or maybe it ended up in our spam or something like that. So feel free to resend it. But I do just want to make a point that we do absolutely respond to each and every email that we do receive. Okay, so interface tour. So I wanted to just walk through the interface of Homeschool Tracker real quick, just to get you guys familiar with it. I'm just going to sign out here real quick. And you can always log in to Homeschool Tracker right here at online.homeschooltracker.com. And you can put your username and password in there. I have a webinar user that I'm going to use. And you're immediately greeted with the main menu. So I'm just going to walk through the main menu and how it's organized. So up here on the top left, you have the schedules and planning area. And this is where your agenda is, lesson plans are, the shared lesson plan library. They all live right up here. And this is probably where you'll spend a lot of your time. Below that is the students section. And this includes anything related to your students and at that sort of level. So you have the student list, which is where you can add or delete students or edit them. You can go right into the grading overview for each student. You can add information that will be appended to their transcript if you generate one for each student. So that's the students section. And then right here in the middle, these are all reports. And so this is the reports section. Each one of these will take you to a page that will allow you to generate a report for that specific thing. So if I wanted to create the daily task list, which we'll go over later, I would just go right in here and I could create a report for my student, and it'll generate a PDF file that I can download and print or save or email, whatever you want to do with it. And then up here in the top right is the Manage Lists section. And the best way to describe this is more of a maintenance area. And as we get deeper into our demo, you'll see what I mean by that. So this is where you'll find the lists of activities or chore names or courses or your library. These are all items that basically serve as a repository for things that you're going to use within your assignments. So for example, if you're just thinking about the library, this is where all of your resources will live, all of the books that you might use. And it's just a list of all of those, and it includes lots of details. But then those items will be referenced in assignments, in lesson plan items, which you would create over here. So that's why I like to kind of refer to it as a maintenance area. This is where you can kind of go in, edit those items, delete them, archive them, that sort of thing. And it'll affect everything else, because all of these other areas of the program kind of draw from these different lists. And below that is the Your Account section. So this is where you can change the program options. You can update your school profile. You can add user accounts for your students, extend your subscription, that sort of thing. So that's just a quick overview of the menu and kind of how it's laid out. Okay, so let's go over here and talk about subjects and courses. And this is important, an important distinction between the two, because this is an area where I think folks can sometimes get confused. And so we like to think of subjects as broad areas of study. So things like math, language arts, history, science, they're really broad. These are just basic subjects. There's nothing very specific in there. But courses, however, are the specific areas of study in your homeschool. And so these are things like Algebra 2, which would then belong to the subject of math, or Composition 1, which would belong to the subject of language arts, or Physical Science 1, which belong to the subject of science. And so that's where you can get you can get more specific in organizing your homeschool. And so typically most homeschool tracker accounts may have, maybe 5 to 10 subjects, but they may have hundreds of courses. So you can think of courses like a class. It's, we use those interchangeably. So you could even have like freshman geometry as a course, which would be part of the math subject, if that makes sense. So let's just do a quick demo of what that looks like so you can get a better idea. So here I am back in Homeschool Tracker. And first I'll jump over to the subjects list. Excuse me, I have a bit of a sore throat, so please bear with me. So here's the subjects list, and you can see I have 5 subjects here. And I think these are the default 5 that come with a new account once you activate it. Excuse me, sorry. I apologize. And you can see that there's not really a whole lot going on here. You've got the name history, and I have its status is a core subject, and there's one course that belongs to it, and it's currently active. If I double click on that, I could edit that information. But again, not a lot of options here. It's pretty basic. If I wanted to add a new subject, simply go to Action and choose Add, give it a name, and save it. Again, similar with deleting it. If I wanted to delete a subject, Action, Delete. So again, not a whole lot going on the subjects page. Sorry, just taking a drink of water there. Okay, but let's jump over to the courses page, because there you'll see how it's different. So courses, already you can see there's a lot more information here. Let's look at Ancient History 1, which is the name of the course. It belongs to the subject history. There's things here like credit units, calculation option, what grading scale it's using, if there's any notes, is it using a weighted grading scale, that sort of thing. If I double click on it, again, a lot more options here. So, excuse me, what I want to do is go ahead and create a new course. I'm going to go ahead and click on Action, choose Add, and I'll give this course a name. So let's give this course the name of Reading 2. And so for Reading 2, I need to assign it a subject, and reading would probably belong to the language arts subject. So go ahead and type in language arts. I'm going to stop right there, because as I was typing, you probably saw that language arts popped up here. This is what's called a smart entry field. And what it's doing is it's actually searching your subjects list as you type for items that match what you're typing. So again, if I started typing language arts, you can see language arts pops up. If I start typing history, history will pop up. And that's really great, because as you kind of go through the program, you'll see these smart entry fields around. And if you have long lists, it's a quick way to kind of filter that list down. One trick I like to tell folks is that you could hit the space bar, basically enter a blank space, and you'll see everything in that list. So I can go ahead and choose language arts that way. The other thing I'll mention is that you can actually create a new item or create a new subject, just by typing in a new name. So if I typed in language arts 2, since that doesn't exist, if I hit save, it'll actually create a new subject called language arts 2. In this case, I want to just select language arts. And then there's a whole bunch of other options here, which we're not going to get into on this webinar, probably in a future one. But again, feel free to utilize the help resources if you have any questions about what these options can do. I apologize, sorry. I'm just going to mute my microphone for 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So here I have my Reading 2 course, and it's part of the language arts subject. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And it says added one new item, click to refresh view. So I'll do that. And you can go ahead and see that I have Reading 2, and it's part of the language arts subject. So that's ready to go. So that's how you would create a course, and that's really the difference between subjects and courses. So as you would go through your homeschool year or your say high school, for example, you would start to create lots of courses, and keeping them separate from subjects is really important. Okay, so things to watch out for. Don't use the same exact name for both the subject and the course. So for example, if I was creating a course called Language Arts that belonged to Language Arts, that'd be pretty confusing. So definitely try to come up with a name for your course that's just more specific than the name of the subject. And a slash in a name shows the break between subject course. If you don't see a slash, you're just looking at a subject. So I'm going to show you what that looks like here. And we're just going to jump straight to creating an assignment. And we'll go over in more detail how this works. But if you're adding an assignment and you're choosing a subject course, again, this is a smart entry field. So I'll just hit spacebar. And you can see how this looks. So I have language arts. This is just the subject of language arts. And then I have language arts / grammar / reading 1, reading 2, etc. So this is what it looks like when you see subject and then / and then course. So if I just selected that, I'd be selecting just the subject. But if I was selecting this, I'd actually be selecting the course, reading 2. That's just what it looks like within the program. So just wanted you to be aware of that. Okay. Assignments. So as I think I said before, assignments are really the heart of all your record keeping. So everything in Homeschool Tracker typically gets tied back to an assignment. So and assignments are the schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete. So you can think of them as, read pages 10 to 15. It could be, an assignment could actually be a quiz or a test. They all get created within this thing that we call an assignment. It's different from an appointment or a chore. Those are available within Homeschool Tracker, but we just track those a little bit differently. So let's take a look at where assignments come from and what they can do. So assignments are right here in the middle, the heart of all your record keeping. And they come from a couple places. So they can be created individually or in a series. And they can come from lesson plans, and we'll talk about lesson plans in a bit. Lesson plans contain items that then, once they go through the scheduler, can become assignments. And within an assignment, if you grade it, if you mark that assignment as complete, you can do a number of different things. So you can start to generate report cards and transcripts. If you have auto attendance enabled, when you mark an assignment complete, it'll also create an attendance record for you. Assignments will show up on the daily task list and other reports. And you can certainly generate lots of different reports and PDF files that I mentioned that you can use for a variety of reasons. So let's just take a look at what a basic assignment entry field looks like. So each assignment requires a student, a subject course, which we looked at just a few minutes ago, and a date. And then there's a number of optional fields that can also be entered. But really, those are the three things that every assignment needs. You'll likely want to enter more information. You can enter, grading information or time spent. You can enter in a name of activity, for example, like a lesson or a quiz or test would might be an activity. You can attach a resource to an assignment, and a resource comes from your library. So it could be a book or a workbook or a DVD or something like that. And then you can enter in PLC information, and PLC stands for page, lesson, chapter. And then you can also enter in directions, and there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the amount of text you can put into the directions field. All of that can be entered in directly into an assignment. And so when an assignment is marked complete by a teacher, and I'll just show you that right here. So there's this complete section, and it can be marked either student complete or teacher complete. When you mark it teacher complete, a number of things can happen. So attendance can be recorded if you have auto attendance enabled. Grades will then be generated if you're grading. If you're tracking time spent, that's all calculated. And from all of that information, from all of that data, then you can generate all sorts of reports that we mentioned. So it's really important to understand that an assignment really is the heart of everything. And creating those assignments and then as a teacher marking them complete is really what triggers all of those calculations and all of those reports. Okay, so we're going to do a little demo on how to create single and multiple assignments. We're going to add grades and mark them complete. And I'll show you how to do that in both the calendar view and the list view. I'm going to go ahead and get another drink of water real quick. Just bear with me. Let me just mute my microphone. Okay, sorry about that. Of course, once you start talking is when you realize that your throat isn't quite 100%. So I apologize. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into this this demo. So first, I'm going to start in the calendar view. So again, from the main menu, clicking on Agenda Calendar View. And the calendar view is a great place to create single and multiple assignments, and it's an easy way to kind of see your week or your month or your day at a glance. So to create a single assignment, all you have to do is click on Add, Assignment Single, and I can go ahead and choose a student. In this case, I'll choose my daughter, Campbell. I can select a subject course. So I'll hit the space bar, and I'll select Ancient History 1. Then I can choose an activity. And again, an activity is a smart entry field. So I happen to have a number of different activities already in there, but I'm going to just call this a lesson. And then a resource as well, so I can add a resource. So let's go ahead and just pick this book as a resource. I can add other information like PLC, but I'm just going to go ahead and choose a date here. I'll choose today, and I can choose a start and end time. Let's just say from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. If I don't choose a start and end time, it'll actually show up as an all-day assignment, and that's certainly, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just another way to organize things if you're not using specific times. And then I can choose points possible and points earned. So I'll say that this assignment is going to be worth 10 points. And time spent is automatically calculated based off of the time here, or I can enter it manually. And I'll go ahead and hit save. Excuse me. And scroll down here, and there it is, Campbell Ancient History 1. If I go ahead and click on it, I can see all the details. I can jump into more and edit all those details if I want. But let's say, and that's now the end of the day, and she's done her assignment. So as a teacher, I can kind of jump in here and grade it. So what I want to do is just click on it, and there's a quick way to mark something complete as a teacher right here. I can just click on this check mark, and it'll show me if I need to enter a grade or not. And so in this case, let's say she got a 9 out of 10. I can hit continue, and you'll notice that a grade was automatically calculated here, and this check mark turned to green, which means it was marked complete. If I jump into more, you can see that reflected as well. So now this checkbox is checked, and the grade is now there at 90%. And I can go ahead and hit save. And you'll probably also notice that this purple present item showed up here as well. So because I have something called auto attendance enabled, when I mark an assignment as complete, it assumes that that means that the student was there that day, and so it should also create an attendance record for her. And because I have that enabled, it created this attendance record when I marked that assignment as complete. And you can turn that on or off, but it's kind of a nice feature if attendance is important to you and you don't want to enter it manually. Okay, cool. So now, that's one way to enter assignments, and a lot of folks do it just like this. So you could, at the beginning of every day, or say the night before, just add single assignments and just add them one by one for your day. And then at the end of the day, jump back in there and mark them complete, grade them, whatever you need to do, and then you're good to go. And then do it again for the next day. So nothing wrong with that workflow at all. And in fact, I kind of even recommend that for new users. No reason to get more complex than you need to if you're just starting out. Just adding a single assignment, putting in all the details, marking it complete, and grading it is certainly a great way to do that. You could also do this in reverse. So for example, if you are more of maybe an unschooler, or if you don't necessarily want to plan out your day in advance, you could just go throughout your day, and then at the end of the day, just go ahead and enter in the assignments of the things that you did do during that day, grade them, mark them complete, and then Homeschool Tracker becomes more of a log than a planning tool. And there's nothing wrong with that either. That's a great way to use it as well. So, just trying to show you how you can use these tools each and every day to keep track of your assignments and to generate these records, which will be really important if you want to create a report card or transcript in the future. So now let's walk through how to create multiple assignments at once. So again, if I just go to Add and choose Assignment Multiple, I'm presented with what is essentially like a wizard. It kind of walks me through a lot of different steps, and at the end of it, I'll end up with multiple assignments. So I can choose which students I want, and if I wanted to do this for more than one student, they would show up here, and I could check those boxes. Again, let's choose a subject course, choose Ancient History 1. Again, we'll call this a lesson, give it a resource. I'm just kind of putting in similar information. Let's have these start at 1 p.m. and they'll go for an hour as well. And they'll each be worth 10 points. And then I can say continue to day and date, or I can click on the day and date tab up here and it'll just move me forward in the wizard. Then I have a few options here in terms of how I want to schedule these and how many I want to make. So I can choose to skip days off or non-school days. I can choose how often I want them to happen. So I could choose to have it every day, or I could do it weekly and choose which days I want it to occur, or monthly, or I could spread it evenly between a given date range. So I'm going to choose daily, and let's say every day, and we'll have it start on the 16th tomorrow. And we will continue creating items until an end date, let's say just the 18th. So we'll just do it for the rest of the week. And then we'll continue on to page, lesson, chapter. Excuse me. So I have a couple options here, and page, lesson, chapter again is just that field that you can enter in information for your students so they know exactly kind of what the directions are for the assignment. So I could choose to have the same PLC for each copy that I'm creating and just put in, chapter 1, for example, and then choose how many copies I want to make. But the real power comes in when I want to do what's called these auto increments. And so if you think about recurring assignments, typically, the first assignment might be chapter 1, and then the second assignment might be chapter 2, and so on. Well, you can do that using these auto increment tools right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a 1-part auto increment. You could also do 2 or 3-part auto increments. And basically what like a 2-part one would do, it might say like page 1, lesson 1, and then it could say page 1, lesson 2, and increment that way. I'm going to do a 1-part auto increment, and I'll just say the leading text is chapter. Then start with chapter 1, and we'll just end with chapter 3, and we'll increment by 1. And if I click this little sample icon here, it'll show me kind of what that will look like, which is exactly what I want. So it'll create essentially 3 items, and they'll increment chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So if I go ahead and click continue to preview, what it does is it shows me a preview of those assignments before I go ahead and add them to the agenda. And so you can see that Campbell will have an assignment starting tomorrow from 1 to 2, and the PLC is chapter 1, and then the next one's chapter 2, and then chapter 3. So again, this is just a preview. So if you've gotten to this point, these items have not actually been created yet. If you want to actually accept them, you have to select which ones you want. So I'll just choose select all, and then I can click accept selected items. One other thing I'll mention too while we're still here on the preview page is if I want to change anything on here, I can just click on these tabs up here again at the top. So if I was like, oh, actually I want to change the PLC information, I can jump back here, adjust it, and then go back to preview, and it'll regenerate the preview before I'm ready to go. But this is what I'm looking for, so I'll go ahead and make sure they're all selected and choose accept selected items. And so now here I am back on the calendar view, and you can see now I have those 3 assignments. Oops, 1, 2, 3, Wednesday through Friday. And if I click on one, I can see that this is chapter 1. And then if I go to the next one, it was chapter 2, and then chapter 3. So that's a way that you can create multiple assignments all at once. And so again, if you're thinking about workflow, this is something that you could do, say, at the beginning of the week, and create all of your assignments for the week just like that for each course that your student's taking. And then, for example, at the end of the week, you could go in and mark them complete, add grades, or at the end of every night, do that as you go. So again, it's just another way to save a little bit of time. Instead of having to create single assignments at once, you can do multiple assignments at once. I'm going to then show you how to do this in the agenda list view. So we've been in the calendar view. Actually, one more thing, while we're still in the calendar view, you'll notice the navigation here at the top. These blue tabs are really filters. So they can allow you to filter what you're viewing here in the calendar. So for example, right now I'm viewing all students. I'm viewing all types, but for example, let's say I wanted to turn off just viewing the attendance. I could turn that off, and that attendance record disappears. You still have an attendance record, but I'm just not viewing it right now. And this becomes really helpful. Let's say if you have multiple students and there's all sorts of things here on the calendar, and you just want to kind of hone in on what it is you're looking for. You can use these filters here at the top to help you do that. So I'll turn that back on. You can also filter based off completion status. So for example, let's say my student marks things complete as they go, and I don't really want to see everything on the calendar. I just want to see the things that they've already marked complete so that I can go in there and then mark them complete for myself. I could adjust these filters accordingly to view just those items on the calendar. You can also choose which subjects and courses you want to view versus viewing all of them. So lots of different filtering options here. So let's jump over to the list view, clicking on the menu and going to agenda list view. And this is essentially all the same information that you saw on the agenda calendar view, but it's in a different view. So it's formatted in a list, and it allows you to edit multiple items at once. So in the calendar view, as you saw, you had to click on an item to view it. Here you can kind of see a range of items and see all of the different information there, which can be really powerful if you want to make changes to a number of items at once, or if you just want to sort and group things differently. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to view, oh, sorry, I jumped ahead here. So on the left side here, this green area, these are all those filters. So in the calendar view, we had the filters at the top. In the list view, we have all those filters here on the left. And they're very similar to what you saw in the calendar view. The biggest difference here is there's a date range, whereas the calendar, it's more obvious what you're looking at. Here, you can adjust the range, the date range of what you're looking at. So if I click here and I choose just this week, so I'm going to choose this week, I'll see all the assignments and items for this week. And so you can see this was that first one that we created, and then these were those next 3 that we created. And this was that attendance record that was generated when I marked this assignment as complete. As this starts to fill up, again, you might want to filter things. So I could click over here and turn off the attendance records, to make it a little bit easier. I'll go ahead and turn that back on. Another thing that you can do is you can sort and group all of these items. So if I wanted to sort by, let's say PLC, I could sort by PLC, and let's do a reverse sort. So by clicking on the column header here, I can go down and sort descending that way. To clear that sort, I just click again until that arrow goes away. I can sort by start time, and you can actually sort by multiple things at once, and that is a really powerful way if you require it. But it can also get you perhaps in trouble if if you have multiple sorts turned on like this, and you're wondering why things aren't appearing in the way that you hope. Just make sure you have all these sorts turned off, or that you only have the sorts on that you're hoping for. So I mentioned, in the list view, you can modify more than one item at the same time. So let's take these three assignments. Oops. Let's take these three assignments that we had created, and let's edit them all at once. So if I select all three and choose Action, Multi-Edit, I can edit all three of these assignments at the same time. So let's say I want to go ahead and add a grade. I can just choose Earned and say Campbell got 8 out of 10 on all of those. And I want to mark it complete at the same time. And I'll just go ahead and mark that complete. You can go ahead and click Save, and it'll refresh, and boom, all three of those have been graded and marked complete. And you'll notice too, when I did that, all of these attendance records are created at the same time. So that's just a quick way to show you that the list view becomes really powerful in that you can duplicate, edit, copy multiple assignments all from this view. And you can sort and group things as well. When it comes to grouping, you can take these column headers and literally click and drag them to this area up here and group things by type. So I just grabbed the type column, and so now it's grouping things by type. So here are all the assignments grouped together. Here's all the attendance records grouped together. You can collapse these accordingly, and that becomes really powerful too. So for example, if you have multiple students, you could group by student and then just see Campbell's assignments and then see just your other students' assignments. To clear a grouping, you can just click the X here, and that will go away. And then also you can search at any point. So if you wanted to search for something, you could just search in the search box, hit enter, and you'll see just your search results. To clear a search, you can just click on this applied search right here, and that search will go away. Okay, so that's how you would do that in the agenda list view, and just shows you, generally how to navigate in the list view, and really, the power of the tools that are there. Okay, so we talked about creating single and multiple assignments. We added grades, and we marked them complete. And I showed you how to do that in the calendar view and the list view. So the next thing we want to cover are lesson plans. And so lesson plans are an optional feature. You don't have to use lesson plans, but they're there for you. And what they are a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. So if you remember, assignments, they needed a student, they needed a subject course, and they needed a date, and then all of those other optional fields. Lesson plan items have all of those things, except they don't have a date and they don't have a student, because the power of a lesson plan is it's just a sequence of items that you could then reuse because they're not tied to a date or tied to a student. And so this is really perfect if you want to plan everything out in detail all at once, like at the beginning of the year, or if you have a predefined curriculum. So let's say if you purchased an off-the-shelf curriculum and they have a lesson plan that you want to follow, this is a great way where you can essentially input all that information and then follow the lesson plan throughout the year. And since it's not tied to a particular student, that means it can be reused over and over again. So for example, if you have a freshman in high school right now who's taking biology and you created a lesson plan for her, when let's say your younger student gets to be in that course, you can simply just reuse that lesson plan. You don't have to enter in all that information again. So that's where lesson plans really become powerful. And then the last thing is that lesson plans can be shared and imported using the shared lesson plan library. So there's literally hundreds of lesson plans in the shared lesson plan library, and the majority of them actually are based off of popular curriculum. So if you had purchased a curriculum off the shelf, you could take a look at the shared lesson plan library and see if another Homeschool Tracker user has already created a lesson plan for that, and you could import that into your account. and start using it right away. And vice versa, if you had taken the time to create a lesson plan, you could share it out to the rest of the community. This is also great if you're in a co-op or a group, and maybe you're all doing a class together. One person in the group could create a lesson plan and share it with everybody else. So we're going to do a demo on lesson plans, and I'll show you an example lesson plan, because I think when you see an example, it'll make a little bit more sense on how it works. And then we'll create a really simple lesson plan. So I can show you the tools to use for that. We'll import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library. And then the real power comes when we start scheduling our lesson plan and creating those assignments based off of that. So let's jump in and see an example lesson plan. So from the main menu, I can go over to the lesson plan link here. And I happen to have a lesson plan already loaded up. And right away, you might notice that the lesson plan screen here looks a lot like the agenda list view. And all those same paradigms that we just went over on the agenda list view exist here as well. So you can sort things right here just by using the columns. You can group items just like we did before. You can filter things here on the left. And you can search for text, again, right here in the search box. So just keep that in mind, that the lesson plan screen looks a lot like the list view, and you can do a lot of those same functions. And that actually exists throughout Homeschool Tracker, and you'll see this kind of paradigm in a number of different places. But let's take a look at this lesson plan, because I think when you see it, it'll start to make more sense. So this first item here, you can see day 1, order 1, and the subject course is language arts grammar. And there's an activity called, it looks like, pre-assessment test. And there's a resource associated with it. And it looks like there's directions as well. So if I double click, I can kind of see all the information here and see what this item contains. And if you look at this little pop-up here, you'll notice it looks a lot like the assignment entry screen, except it's missing a few things. It's missing a student and it's missing a date. And like I mentioned before, that's really what separates an assignment from a lesson plan item, are those two things. If you continue down through the lesson plan, you can see that on day 2, there's a workbook item. And here, actually, on day 2, there's a number of items. There's more than one. So you'll notice on day 1, there was just one. On day 2, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 items. So it looks like in this particular lesson plan, you have to do 2 workbook things, and you have to do a memorization activity and a lesson activity. And so when this runs through our scheduler, what's going to happen is on day 1, it'll schedule this item. And on day 2, it'll schedule all 4 of these items. And then on day 3, it'll schedule these 3 items, and so on. And so this is where you can start to really plan out how you're going to structure your lessons. And you don't necessarily need to pick the times or the days yet, but you can just say that, on day 1, I want to do this. And on the second day that we're doing language arts grammar, I want to do these 4 things. And on the third day, I want to do these 3 things. And that just shows you kind of how a lesson plan can be structured. And you'll see, in this case, there's 405 items in this lesson plan. If I scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see it goes for 182 days, and there's a final exam at the end. So you can create a lesson plan that can be as detailed as this, or it could be much simpler. It's really up to you how much detail you want to put into a lesson plan. But the nice thing is, for something like this, this one's called Easy Grammar Level 5, is that if I have multiple students, I can use this lesson plan for one, and then the next year I can use it for somebody else, and so on and so forth. And that's really where the power of lesson plans comes into play. So that's just a sample lesson plan I wanted to show you, so you got a better idea of what they actually are. One last thing I'll show you here on the lesson plan screen. To load up a different lesson plan, so we're looking at the Easy Grammar Level 5 lesson plan, you just click on this filter over here, and I can choose the lesson plan name. And again, this is a smart entry field, so if I just put in a space bar, I can see all of the lesson plans that I have in my account. So I'll load up this Abeka arithmetic lesson plan. And again, there's 202 items in this plan, 170 days. And you can see it kind of goes lesson, lesson, lesson. Then there's an oral test and then a test. And in this case, you can see that each everyday lesson isn't worth any points, but it looks like the tests are worth a lot of points. So, it's all about how you want to structure your lesson plans. And you can do all of that right here within the lesson plan screen. Okay, so those are two examples of lesson plans. Now I want to create a simple lesson plan so you can see the process that goes into that. So again, from the lesson plan screen, I can just go to Add, and I'm going to choose Add Multiple. And right away, you can see this is a very similar paradigm to when I did add multiple assignments, because again, lesson plan items and assignments are very similar. And so we use a lot of the same paradigms when creating both. So first off, I can choose what lesson plan I want to add these items to. In this case, I want to create a new one. So I'm going to delete this and just put in lesson sample. I'll just use that for now. And I can choose the subject course. So let's choose, let's just do it again for ancient history, keep it consistent. And then I can choose an activity. So let's do lessons and a resource. And so again, this is very similar to what we were doing before, right? Let's say each one of these lessons is worth 5 points, and then I can continue to day numbers. And so instead of continuing to day and date, as you remember, now I'm just continuing to day numbers. And so I want to start on day 1 and increment by 1. Okay, so then I'll go to PLC, and I want to do a 1-part auto increment here. And let's just call this chapter. And I want to start with 1 and end with, let's go 10. And I can see a sample to make sure that's working right. Yep, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue to preview. And if I did everything right, I should have 10 lesson plan items. Yep, so I have 10 items, and they go day 1 through 10, and the PLC goes chapter 1 through 10. And again, this is just a preview, so I still have to select all and then accept the selected items. Okay, and then I want to just load up that plan that we just created. So that was called lesson sample, I believe. And there you go. So now I have a 10-item lesson plan that I can use however I want. And let's say at the end of this, I wanted to have a test. I could go ahead and add a single and go ahead and fill this out. Let's call this a test. And let's say it's worth 50 points. And it's going to be on day 11. So you go ahead and hit save. So now I have my lessons and I have a test. If I wanted to reorder these things, I certainly could. So if I wanted to put the test earlier, let's say I wanted it on day 5, can move that to day 5. You have the flexibility. All those same editing functions that we've looked at before also exist here. And certainly, obviously, this is a very simple lesson plan, and the ones that we looked at were much more complex. When it comes to creating these lesson plans, it's good to be strategic and efficient in how you're using the tools. So what I often recommend is maybe start planning it out on paper and seeing, okay, I know that I'm going to need 10 quizzes and a midterm and a final exam, and then I'm going to need 100 lessons in between, and start to think about how you want to structure it, and then go ahead and start creating it within Homeschool Tracker. Because I think what you'll find is that you'll be able to take advantage of a lot of those tools, like the auto increment PLC and creating multiple items at once to really create your lesson plan efficiently. You could certainly obviously do it the way that I just did, where you just create them one by one and kind of move the day numbers around to adjust. But there are tools in here to make it a little bit quicker for you, which you could certainly take advantage of. Okay, so that's creating a simple lesson plan. Let's look at importing a lesson plan real quick. So from the main menu, if I go to Shared Lesson Plans, I can get to the Shared Lesson Plan library. And I'm just going to delete this. If I hit Go right here with a blank search, it will display all of the shared lesson plans that exist out there. And so as you can see, there's hundreds of them in here. And some of them have, really good descriptions. Some of them just have a title. So it's really a matter of just kind of seeing if there's one out there that might work for you. I'm going to go ahead and find one. Let's just look for reading. And I'm going to use this Usborne First Reading Level 1 lesson plan. So I can click on it and take a look at it. There's 15 days here, and it's a child read aloud activity. This is the one that I want. So what I can do is choose prepare for import. Now that's ready, I can go ahead and give it a new name. So this is the name it's going to have when it gets imported into my account. So I'm going to call it Reading 2, because as you remember, we created that Reading 2 course earlier in the webinar, and I want this to kind of work with that course. And so now I've got that. And so what I can do is I can choose Select All, and then accept the selected items, and it'll import all those into a new lesson plan on my account called Reading 2. But it is always good to just kind of preview this and make sure it's what you want. So I'm just happening to notice right now that for subject course, it just says language arts. And if you remember from before, if it just says language arts, that means it's assigned to the subject language arts. And I really want this to be part of the course Reading 2. So what I'll do is with these selected, I can choose Action, Multi-Edit. I can actually change that here on import. So I'll select subject course and choose Language Arts Reading 2 and hit save. And there you go. It just updated that now. So when I import this, it'll have the subject course as Language Arts Reading 2. And you can also do that obviously after you import it using the same multi-edit function, but it's kind of nice to just do it right here. So I can go ahead and click Accept Selected Items. And there we go. So now I have this lesson plan Reading 2 in my lesson plans, and here are all the items ready to go. So that's how you import a shared lesson plan. Real quick, I'll just talk about how you would export one or share one. You could select your items and just choose Action, Share. And you could give it a name and a description. And I would highly recommend giving it a very descriptive name, and then also adding in as many details as you want into the description so that other users know exactly what it is that you're sharing. Okay, great. So that's how you would import a plan. So now let's talk about scheduling a lesson plan, and we'll also discuss presets. So let's say I have this plan and I want to go ahead and schedule it for my student Campbell. What I can do is simply select the items I want to schedule from the lesson plan screen here. So let's say I want to schedule an entire week, and I want, or let me start that over. Let's say I just want to schedule the first 5 items. So I can select the first 5 items here and choose Action, Scheduler. And I'm going to select Campbell, and I'm going to schedule those 5 items. So I'm going to continue to day and date. And again, this is a very similar paradigm, just like when we were creating multiple assignments or lesson plan items. So I can select the day and date, and I want this to happen every day, and I can choose my time. So let's just say 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and I can choose a start date. So let's say we're going to do this for next week, starting on the 21st. And then I can select continue until all selected items in the lesson plan are used. So those 5 items, that's what I want. So I'll continue to preview. And there we go. So now I get a preview of what those 5 assignments now will look like. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Here they are. This is exactly what I want. So I can hit select all and choose accept selected items. And then those first 5 lesson plan items will be scheduled on Campbell's agenda for next week. And that's a great way to use the scheduler directly from the lesson plan screen if you want to go ahead and schedule items from the lesson plan to your student's agenda. But what I want to show you is how to do that using what we call a preset. And so I'm actually not going to accept these selected items, but I'm going to jump over to lesson plans and presets here under students. Okay, and so I have Campbell loaded up here. And you can see that these are all the lesson plans that I currently have set as active lesson plans that she's using. So I'm going to go ahead and add that new one that we just created, or just imported, I should say. by clicking on Edit right here. And the lesson plans and presets screen is really just a more powerful scheduling tool. And I'll show you what that means here in just a second. So now I'm in the lesson plan selection here, and I'll just choose that Reading 2 lesson plan right here and just go back to active plans. And what that'll do is it'll add that Reading 2 lesson plan to this lesson plans and presets active lesson plans. And what you see here, so these are all the different lesson plans. These are the total number of items in that lesson plan. These are the number of remaining items. And remaining just means the number of items that I have not yet scheduled for Campbell from that particular plan. So you can see I've already scheduled some items from these other plans for Campbell. Here's that one that we just created. I haven't scheduled any of them, so it's still 15 out of 15. So what I'm going to do next is jump over to preset. And what a preset is it's a preset time either in the day or during the week that I want a specific course to happen. So as you can see here, I have a number of presets. I have Ancient History 1 from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I have Arithmetic from 11 to 12 on Mondays, and then on Tuesdays she does Reading 1, etc. So you can kind of start to build out a schedule, if you will. And it's important to remember that these are just preset times. They're just like blocks of time when the scheduler can then look at and schedule your items accordingly based off of at what times and what days that you wanted to those things to occur. So what I'll do is I'll just choose Add. I'm going to add a new preset. And this one is going to be for Language Arts Reading 2. And let's say I want it to happen, let's go in the afternoon. Let's choose 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. I want it to happen on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So click Save. Excuse me. And so you can see that I just added that preset, Reading 2, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. This will all make sense in just a second once I get to the scheduler. So now I've got that preset saved, and I can choose Scheduler. If you have your presets already in here, you would just jump straight to the scheduler. So now I can choose which lesson plans I want to schedule. And let's go ahead and let's just select all of these. I'm not sure if they all have a corresponding preset or not, but I do know that Reading 2, that one that we just imported, is there, and we just created a preset for it. So now I'll go ahead and continue to day and date. And here on the day and date, I could just choose specific times like we've done before, but I'm going to select this option here, preset. And so what that'll do is when the scheduler runs, it'll look at all those presets that we have and match up those lesson plan items accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to select preset, and then I'm going to choose my start date as next Monday. And I'm going to just continue it until the end of the week, until the 25th. So I just want to schedule next week. And I'll continue to preview. And here we go. So now I have 49 items here that will all be scheduled when I say yes. And we can look at them and see, for example, it looks like, these don't have start and end times because they probably don't have a preset associated with them, which is fine. But if I look at Reading 2, it's happening, or it's about to be scheduled for Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. And these were all the details from that Reading 2 item. Let's find the next one just to see. Again, Reading 2. And this is for Wednesday. So remember, we just created that preset for Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then let's see, Reading 2 again right here, Friday from 2 to 3. And so this is day 3 of that lesson plan. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Select All and just hit Accept Selected Items. And so now it's going to go ahead and remember, it's going to take all those lesson plan items, and now it's going to create assignments for them on my agenda. And it's doing 49 of them all right now. So here we go. So you can start to see the power in that I just scheduled all of these lesson plans for one student all at once for an entire week. And now you see these numbers updated. So Reading 2, there are still 15 total items, but there's only 12 remaining because I just scheduled those 3. So let's jump over to the calendar view and see what this looks like. So again, this was this week. So we started scheduling for next week. If I go to next week, boom, you can see all of the items that we scheduled. So there are a number of all-day items that I mentioned. Remember, we selected lesson plans that we didn't have presets for, which is fine. They exist there. But then I also have all of these items that did have a preset associated with them. And in fact, you can see here's those reading 2 items that are now assignments: Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And this one, is all of the details from that first lesson plan item, and this one has all the details from that second lesson plan item, and so on. And so when we think about workflows, this is really a great workflow in that you can create all of your lesson plans up front, and say at the beginning of the week, go into Homeschool Tracker. Say it's like you spend some time on Sunday night. You jump in here and you select. You go into the lesson plans and presets page, select your student, select the lesson plans, and schedule out the next week. And create this schedule, and you're good to go. And then either throughout the week or at the end of the week, you can go back in here, mark all these complete, add in your grades, that sort of thing, and you're all set. And do that again the following week. Now, there's this temptation, I think, by a lot of users to schedule the entire year all up front. And I'm really cautious about that just because we just created 49 items just for this one week. If you're going to create items for the entire year, you're talking about thousands of items or thousands of assignments, I should say. And what happens then is you may run into an issue if you needed to reschedule that. Now, let's say you missed a day and you want to push everything forward. Now you're not just pushing 49 items forward, you're pushing forward thousands of items. And that can start to be a bit of a headache. So unless you really see a real benefit to scheduling your entire year in advance, I would highly recommend just scheduling 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. That way you aren't creating too many items at once, and you have much more flexibility in terms of rescheduling if something were to come up, which always comes up, and there's always reasons why you may need to reschedule or push things forward or backward for whatever reason. Okay, cool. So that's how you would schedule a lesson plan and use presets. So let's see. Let's talk about reports for a minute here. And so like I said, reports are PDFs that you can save, print, or send via email. And what I want to talk about specifically is the daily task list. So if I jump over back here, and let's go to the daily task list under the reports tab. The daily task list is a PDF report that will show all of the assignment details for your student on a particular day, and you can generate it over a specific date range. So I'm going to choose a date range. So I'm going to just choose all of next week since we just scheduled all those assignments. So I'll have the start time or the start date be the 21st and the end date be the 25th. And I have a bunch of options here in terms of what I want to include in that report, but I'll just keep them like this for now. And I'll just choose generate and then pick up. And what that did is it just downloaded a PDF file to my downloads folder. So I can open that so you guys can take a look. I'll just zoom in here. So this is a PDF, and it tells me, okay, on Monday, September 21st for Campbell, she has these all-day assignments here that were created, and it includes the subject, the activity, the resource, page, lesson, chapter, any kind of directions I included. And then these are the ones that I had scheduled at specific times. And in fact, here's that reading 2 assignment right here. And then it goes into Tuesday and then Wednesday all the way through Friday. And there's these little handy check boxes here that you or your student can use and kind of check those off as you go. So this is a really handy report that you could print out, put it on a bulletin board or on a clipboard to just have a written copy of everything that your student needs to accomplish throughout the week or throughout the day. So we really like the daily task list for that. I won't cover transcripts and report cards too much right now. Just we probably will do a specific webinar on those as we get closer to mid-year and again at the end of the year. But report cards and transcripts can both be generated as long as you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course. So you can't generate a report card or a transcript for a course if there's no grade. And so really all you need is at least one assignment within a course over a given date range that is marked complete and has a grade associated with it. And then that grade will then be reflected on the report card or the transcript. And as you start to add more grades, they'll start to average out accordingly based off of your grading scale. So that's really how the grades then get calculated over time, and then will show up on those reports. But we will do a specific webinar just on report cards and transcripts, probably in a few months. Okay, so talking about workflows, and we talked about this a lot as we went, but just to recap a bit, you certainly could create single assignments on a daily basis. So as I mentioned, you could go in every night, the day before a school day or that morning, create all the assignments that you want to cover that day, and then at the end of the day, just mark them complete and grade them. You can also do that in reverse. If you didn't exactly know what you were going to cover in a particular day, you just go about your day, and then at the end of the day, kind of recap and see what you did and create assignments and then mark those complete and add a grade at that time. Either way works just great. There's no real reason to really get overcomplicated with lesson plans or multiple assignments or all these things unless you really need those. So if you don't need them, just try doing the single assignment thing for a while and see how it goes. You may then realize, oh, there's probably a faster way to do this, or I should start taking advantage of these other tools, in which case, feel free. You can also do that with multiple assignments, right? You can create multiple assignments for the entire week or for the entire month, however you want to do it, and then go in as you go out throughout your homeschool day or throughout the week and mark things complete and add grades. And then the other way that we just demonstrated was with lesson plans and presets. And this is obviously a much more powerful tool and works really well if you are a planner and if you do know exactly what you want to cover each and every day, and you want to save time and then be able to use those lesson plans again and again in the future. Absolutely. This is what I recommend a lot of folks do if they're willing to take the time to get all that stuff set up. And if you are, then that's great. And I think you'll find those tools really powerful, and they will save you a lot of time. But keep in mind that you don't have to use lesson plans. I get a lot of email questions about, how do I use a lesson plan, or do I need to use a lesson plan if all I'm doing is this? And if the lesson plan seems intimidating at first, I just recommend just doing the single or multiple assignments to start. And as you go and as you become more familiar with the tools, if you start to see the value and the benefits of lesson plans, then it might be a good time to dive into those. But by all means, they're not a requirement to use Homeschool Tracker. They're simply there as a way to speed up data entry and to allow you to reuse lesson plans over and over again. And one thing I will mention, and this a lot of even our more advanced users don't know this, is that you can actually generate a lesson plan from existing assignments. And so this could be really powerful. And let me just demonstrate it real quick. If let's say, for example, you go through an entire year or entire course, saying you've created single and multiple assignments all along the way, you've obviously done a lot of work to do that. And so if you think you may need to reuse that information again in the future, you could simply create a lesson plan from those assignments. So for example, we created all these assignments manually right here, these ancient history ones. Let's say, these are all great and I want to reuse these again for my next student next year or in the future. I could select them and just choose action, copy into lesson plan, and give the lesson plan a name, a starting day number, and it'll actually create a lesson plan with all of that same information that I used in my assignments. So that's actually a great way to create lesson plans, because a lot of times maybe, if you're not using an off-the-shelf curriculum, you might not know what your lesson plan is going to be until you actually do it. And in this way, you can create single assignments throughout the year. And if you love how it all turned out, you might as well save it as a lesson plan to use in the future. So that's just another way of going about it. Okay, Q&A. So If you have any questions at all, feel free to go ahead and submit those using the Q&A button in your viewer. Happy to stick around and answer any questions that may come up. As those are coming in, I don't have any quite yet, but one thing that does come up often is around rescheduling. So maybe I can just go ahead and show you how that works real quick. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to submit those, and I'm happy to answer them. So let's say, for example, let's go back to the calendar view for next week. We want to reschedule, and this happens. It's invariably going to happen no matter what, right? The easiest way to reschedule something is simply from the calendar view, just clicking and dragging, right? That's kind of the simple way to reschedule something. I can move an assignment in any direction I want. I can make it longer or shorter, and it'll be updated accordingly. Obviously, that doesn't, that's not going to work real well if I need to move all of these, all 49 of these, and if I want to move them an entire week or something. So if you need to reschedule in a more advanced way, I would recommend jumping over to the list view. And what I'll do is I'll change my date range to next week. And let's say Campbell was sick on Monday, on the 21st. And rather than double up work for her, we basically just want to shift everything forward an entire day, so that she can just have Monday off and then start back up on Tuesday as if nothing happened. But I just need to move all 49 of those items forward one day. It's pretty easy to do. All I have to do is select all of them and choose Action, Reschedule. And what I can do is just change this start date. So it's currently the 21st. I'll just move it to the 22nd. And I will continue until all items are moved. Just go to Continue to Preview. And the preview here shows me the existing date, Monday, September 21st, and the new date, Tuesday, September 22nd. And that persists throughout the entire week. And so you might notice that it runs into the following Monday, which is fine. So I'll go ahead and choose Select All. And then I'll choose Accept Selected Items. Cool. So now if I jump back to the calendar view, you'll see now her Monday is free, and everything just got shifted forward one day all the way through Monday of next week. Now that's obviously can happen where you are sick or you have visitors in town or whatever it might be, and you just want to push everything forward. But obviously, if you keep doing that, you're just going to keep pushing things forward and until you're well into the summer, for example, right? So at some point, maybe you want to catch up. And so let's say, for example, she's sick on Tuesday again, and rather than push everything forward, I don't want to give up another day. What I'd rather do in this case is I'm going to basically just double her up on Wednesday. So instead of pushing everything forward, I'm going to take all of Tuesday's assignments and I'm just going to add them to Wednesday, and she'll just have a really busy Wednesday, but hey, we gotta keep going. So go back to the list view, and I will select all of Tuesday's items. So let's see here, all on the 22nd. And so those are the only ones I want to reschedule, because I'm going to keep all the other ones the same, and I'm basically going to reschedule the Tuesday items to happen on Wednesday instead. So I have those selected. Choose Action, Reschedule, and instead of Tuesday, I'll just choose Wednesday and continue to preview. And here it shows me again the preview existing date and new date. Then here at the bottom in green, it shows me any kind of conflicting things that are happening. So you'll see that these say existing items. That's just giving me kind of a warning that, hey, you actually have a bunch of stuff already on Wednesday, but that's okay because that's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Select All and Accept Selected Items. And so now if I go back to Calendar View, you can see her Wednesday now is pretty packed. There's a lot of things going on Wednesday, and but we'll still be all caught up by the following Monday. So that's really not the only two ways to reschedule, but probably the two most popular, where either you want to create some space and move everything forward a day or a week or however many days. You can certainly do that. or you want to take an existing day or a set of days and double up the work accordingly. That's just a quick way to move assignments from one day to the next. Okay, any other questions? Any questions at all? Feel free to just submit those in the Q&A widget right there. I'm sure you guys have questions because there's a lot to it, I know. Feel free, they can even be more specific for your particular workflow. Maybe you've been in Homeschool Tracker for a little bit and you got stuck on something. Now's the time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Okay. So not seeing any questions coming in. Let's give it another second here. I think there were a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. Excuse me. Let me just take a look at those real quick. And see if there's any in there that we can go over. And again, I will make a recording of this available for each of you if you want to rewatch it, even with my horrible voice. Again, I apologize for that. Okay, so here's the questions that were asked ahead of time. Beth had asked, can I build a transcript from it? Yes, absolutely. And I mentioned, that we weren't going to talk too much about that, but I can show you real quick maybe what that looks like. Let's see if we have any. We do have some graded assignments, right? Yeah, we graded a few. So let's go ahead and try it. We'll do a transcript for Campbell for this school year, and I have a whole lot of options when I'm creating a transcript. I can display the GPA, graduation date, all of this stuff. Obviously, for Campbell's account here, I don't have a lot of information in there, but let's go ahead and generate it and pick up the report. And here we go. You can see, those ancient history assignments are showing up in semester 1, and she has a B so far, 82.5, and her grade for the year so far is 82.5. And so obviously this is a very simple transcript because we don't have all of our courses and grades in there. But you can imagine, as you start to input all that information, just how robust and powerful this transcript can be. And that's really, it's important to remember, the more time and energy and more detail you put into Homeschool Tracker, the better reports and better information you're going to get out of it. So, there's so many different things you can add here. So, for example, I can add standardized tests or activities and achievements, and they can all show up in the transcript. Those will all be in that transcript supplemental area over here that I mentioned earlier. Again, I could, I'll show you too, I could generate a report card for the same time period and see what that looks like. So again, you see history, ancient history 1, she has an 82.5 right now. So just to show you what that looks like. So that's, yeah, you can certainly build a transcript. Let's see, Ruby had asked, she wanted to learn about grading, which I think we talked a little bit about grading. One thing I'll mention, just show you real quick from here, if you go to the grading overview, this is a cool way to see, without generating a report, what a current grade is. So for Ancient History 1, we currently have that 82.5, which is a letter grade of B. If I actually click on this, it'll show me all of the assignments that we've done so far that have been marked complete and what the grades are. So it can kind of show you like how we're calculating that grade. And up here you can see kind of these little exclamation points will preview, they'll kind of show you how we're getting to that. So for example, this 82.5, I was like, oh, how do you get to that? I can click on it and see that, she had 330 points total. And there are 4 items divided by 4, you get 82.5. And since we're not using weighted grading, it's just set to 100. And so that's how we get the 82.5 for her grade. And we're using the default grading scale, which is probably what you're familiar with. An A is 90%, B is 80%, etc. And then I can also see any details about this course. So this course does not use weighted grading. But that's an interesting way too, because we get a lot of questions of around, I'm generating a report card and the grade seems way off. I don't quite understand. You can always jump into the grading calculation and see, what's going into that grade. And maybe maybe there was a mistake made in that, you entered the wrong points possible, or the points earned, and that's why your grade is turned on, or is not showing up the way you thought. Or maybe you have weighted grading turned on, and you don't have any completed and graded assignments in a particular weighted area, and that can throw your grade way off. So the grading the grading overview page right here is a great way to kind of see your grade throughout the term or throughout the school year without having to generate a report. And it also allows you to dive right into each one of those assignments if you needed to make adjustments to those grades, because I can always just open these up right here and change them, and it'll update live right here for me. Okay, so I think that was it. Those were all the questions that were submitted ahead of time. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so I think we'll wrap up. I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining me today on this webinar. We really appreciate you just taking the time here in the afternoon to do this. And again, what I'll do is I'll email each and every one of you a recording of this when it's available. And feel free to reply to that email or shoot us an email at any time at support@homeschooltracker.com. If you have any other questions, if after you watch it again, or after you kind of get back into Homeschool Tracker, you're running into something, or you just have a workflow question, whatever it is, we're more than happy to answer it. It's really our mission, our goal to get you to be successful with Homeschool Tracker, so that you can keep track of all your grades and your lesson plans, and really be more successful in your homeschool. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks.